Hi everyone, Female Frodo Baggins here, and I know that I've been doing videos exclusively about superheroes lately, but I just have a lot to say about the subject still, because I think we're at the moment where it's at an end, and so I just have some things to say in closing of it for now. I've done videos about Marvel and just reminding them, the audience that they've lost, and I did a video the last time about Fantastic Four and that bombing at the box office. But I haven't really done a comprehensive video on the superhero genre and how it is in fact dead at the box office. And some people still really aren't admitting that. Now, here's the thing. I feel that I've been gaslighted about the Superman movie. I understand that there are people out there who really, really like it, but I really feel that I've been gaslighted about just how well it's doing at the box office and people really celebrating it beyond what the actual reality is. Superman is currently at $551 million worldwide, and since there's really no competition for the coming months and weeks, it might be able to get to 600 million. That's still going to be less than Man of Steel, which came out in 2013, and that's not even adjusting for inflation. But here's the deal with it. I want to compare what superhero movies are doing this year compared to the years prior, because this is the big question. Is the genre dead? Well, let's look in 2017. In 2017, the lowest grossing superhero film was Justice League, which made $661 million and was considered a massive flop. Now, obviously, that's relative to the budget here, but how is it that Superman is making less than Justice League in 2017, which was considered one of the biggest superhero bombs of the era, but it's considered this massive success? And let's look at some other years, shall we? 2014. Now, 2014 was a crazy year for superhero films, which we'll talk about. But look, of all the four superhero films released in that year, they all made over $700 million. Compare that to this year, where movies are lucky if they get 600 million from that. That used to be considered the low point. Like movies like Thor the Dark World or the Ant-Man movies, or yes, once again, Justice League, if they were in the $600 million range, they were considered disappointments for what the superhero genre was getting back in the day. Back in the day, 2014, $700 million for each movie. 2017, over $700 million for each movie again. Marvel got over $700 million for each movie. And Justice League, which was the outlier, was considered the failure. Wonder Woman got to about over $800 million for that movie. So then you compare it to this year, and it's like Captain America Brave New World, over 400 million. Thunderbolts, not even 400 million. Fantastic Four might get to 500 million, but it looks like it might not. It dropped 67%, so not 66%, so almost a 70% drop. I don't even think it's going to break even. And then Superman, the highest grossing of those movies, currently under 600 million, lucky to get 600 million Justice League numbers. And that isn't even, once again, adjusting for inflation. I saw one person claim that Fantastic Four is actually doing as well as the 2005 version if you adjust for inflation. So it's clearly a different time. The thing that's happening with Superman is that there's ways that you can spin it as this success. It's still the highest grossing DC film since the Batman, which just goes to say how bad DC as a brand has been. It did really well domestically because it had really good domestic holds, never mind that it completely collapsed internationally. But you see, there's ways that you can spin Superman as a success, whereas you can't do that with the Marvel films this year, especially since Marvel as a brand was still going stronger than DC. They still have had some hits in the recent years compared to DC, which is why you can spin Superman as more as a success. And James Gunn wants you to see that as a success. And you might be like, well, times are different now. Exactly. We're out of the superhero era of Hollywood. We're just out of it. There's just no denying it when you compare it to how well things were doing, even if they were bad movies. Suicide Squad, Batman vs. Superman, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, These were not well-received films, but they still made a ton of money at the box office because there was interest there. So there's just no denying it. We are out of that era, and the reason why studios are asking you to adjust expectations and their fans are falling for it now is because they know that those days are done. And if you keep expecting these movies to make $1 billion or close to $1 billion, you're going to be disappointed because the money isn't there anymore. So yes, this is it. The superhero genre finally died off, and it's going to be very different. Now, in this video, I want to talk about that reality that superhero movies are, in fact, dead. They are not the box office juggernaut that they used to be. I want to talk about why that actually might be a good thing, not just for the industry, but actually for these superhero characters that people care about. But to give some context, though, I want to just give a reminder of why superhero movies became so popular. I'm not just talking about Marvel here. I'm just talking about superheroes in general. Why was there such a craze over the genre? Such a craze that people were even willing to go see bad movies? Well, if you really want to track it, superhero movies' popularity was correlated by the uptick in quality. Guys, I gotta be honest with you, I've never been a fan of the Tim Burton Batman movies. I know that they have their fans, but why wasn't I a fan? Well, they honestly did not have the depth or development that I was used to seeing, because the superhero movies that brought me to the genre was stuff like Batman Begins and The Avengers and stuff like that, and these movies just had more dimensional characters and more development to those characters and the universe. That was not something that I got in, say, Tim Burton Batman movies. So when you look at the movies that were coming up pre-2000s, it really makes sense of why superheroes was not this big genre and why superhero movies didn't get made that often. There wasn't really a consistency of quality to them whatsoever, even though some things like Christopher Reeve's Superman did really well. But then if you look at the 2000s, you can see that they started to have higher quality gradually. They started to have more depth to them, like movies like Batman Begins. Oh, I was seeing a great post the other day, and it was talking about how, you know, Batman Begins had a ton of depth to it. Batman Begins was very praised for the way it handled its theme of fear. Batman Begins is a very meaningful movie to me because of how it handles those themes with Batman. It is a highly intelligent movie. Batman Begins does not get enough credit for what it did with the superhero genre and Batman as a character. And then The Dark Knight, wow, that was just like a cultural moment when it released because of what it showed that a superhero movie could be and what you could do with a character like Batman and just how iconic Heath Ledger as a performance was. Now, have we seen a movie like The Dark Knight since The Dark Knight? No, we haven't. Movies like that are long gone, and especially for the superhero genre. But like, as the years went by and the more quality you got from superhero movies and having visionaries like Christopher Nolan working on them, the more popular they became. The Dark Knight was the very first billion-dollar superhero film. And then when The Avengers came out, that is a high-quality summer blockbuster. That is one of the best summer blockbusters ever made. I will die on that hill if you really want to look into the film and what it did with its character development. How it was able to develop this group of characters with very, very strong castings and get you to care about them and get you to care about their flaws and them coming together at the end. And how it was able to make what would seem to be a conventional alien invasion exciting. But after that, and The Avengers was the true movie that made the superhero genre explode, after that, they overall continued to produce this very high level of quality. Like 2014, we were talking about, that had X-Men Days of the Future Past, which was one of the best received X-Men films up to that point. And none of these movies are perfect, but X-Men Days of the Future Past really goes all in with the emotion and what it's trying to do with its characters. And The Winter Soldier, that was one of the best theater experiences I ever had. And the action from that movie, from John Wick director Chad Stahelski, with the chase scene in that movie, and once again, it is intelligent with its themes, and that being portrayed as just an excellent spy thriller. And then that same year, you had Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, and I know that it might not seem like it now, but what Guardians of the Galaxy did was completely fresh at the time. You had never seen anything that original up to that point. So even as superheroes had gotten all these fans thanks to movies like The Dark Knight and The Avengers and things like that, even after they got that success, They just kept meeting that bar. They kept meeting it with the quality of their films, and they kept innovating and bringing in new directors on board to bring their visions to life with these. You even got quality TV like Daredevil season 1. But yeah, you did have a high uptick in quality, and that's why people would come, even though not all these movies were good. But people kind of had that general expectancy of these movies, that they would match that level of quality. And once again, there was that whole attraction to the themes of heroism from these movies. But superhero movies' success was kind of also their downfall, because the more successful they got, the more lazy it became. I mean, for one thing, the more successful it became, like, too big to fail. For Marvel Studios, they got rid of a lot of the people who were involved in the beginning who used to make things work. There were power grabs. People took over. Different parties became very interested in these superhero movies and properties because they were so big and influential. That's how in comics, you know, things started to become much more politicized. That's how you got the all different characters who eventually came in and were part of the reason why Marvel actually went through a downfall. Like, that's what happened with superheroes. Like, you had different parties take an interest in them because they were so successful and influential and wanting to do their own things with them. And that's how you got all these other people seeping in and making changes to them. That's why the movies gradually, they used to care a little bit more about capturing the essence of these stories and characters, and that gradually fell away because who cares about the source material anymore? Who cares about comics? These things are too big to fail. And so that's kind of what really changed, is they got too big for their own good. It became, get rid of these directors, bring their own visions to these films. Let's get some people we can control, because the corporations just want to control what these movies are now. Who needs these directors coming in? So you really lost all that. And yeah, the ultimate reason, if we're going to bring it all back to these superhero movies, is quality, and the quality still has not come back, and even still, it is difficult to get people back once you've lost them. Just as there were enough good movies in the past to make people maybe want to check out one even if it's not so great, when you've had that many years of bad films, good luck getting people back. It's going to be very difficult. You can't just make things that are less bad and expect people to come back. I was talking to my sister the other day, and she is definitely more of a casual audience member with this stuff. She's not like me. I'm not normal. I'm just watching all this stuff anyway. But I asked her, because she just doesn't want to hear any of it. She used to be a big Marvel fan. She just doesn't want to hear about it now. And I asked her, okay, fantasy scenario. If one thing could bring you back to watch a Marvel movie again, what would it be? And she thought for a minute, and she said, they would have to do an X-Men movie to the point where I leave the theater feeling good. And I'm like, yeah, there is a way to get people back, but the bar is high because you lost a lot of people now. So let me talk about where the superhero genre is going to go now, because there's still some money to be made. I'm sure Spider-Man will do really well next year. Superman still did something, right? So they're not going to completely die off. They're not going to go the way of the Western, but it is going to change. What is going to happen with James Gunn's Superman universe? Well, it's not really in a great place, considering your next movies following up are Supergirl and Clayface. I don't see James Gunn getting a big, interconnected MCU-like behemoth of a universe in the future. I think that there's enough success there relative to the time we're living in that he's just going to play in that superhero sandbox for a while until he gets tired of it. We'll just have an era where James Gunn is making James Gunn-produced movies. He seems like he can't get a Batman off the ground. We'll see how that is, but that's just going to be the era with it, and there will still be DC movies. Maybe some of them will do well, maybe some of them won't. That's kind of how it's going to be with superhero films. It's going to go back to the way it was before the 2010s, where they existed, but the industry wasn't dependent on them. They weren't so big that the industry became dependent on them. And that might be a good thing for both parties involved. For one thing, you know, this is the closing video for July. For one thing, the industry became just so dependent on IP films, and superheroes were a big push for that it became just about the IPs. If the industry is starting to lose these IPs, and it has, because even Jurassic World has the highest grossing movie of this July, it's still underperformed. It's the first Jurassic World movie that is not going to do $1 billion. As companies keep losing these IPs and they're not selling anymore, then it might force them to have to look at other things, like have to start new IPs, or have to start taking a risk with people creating something new. that might happen. It's not going to be like it was before where they just had to rely on the billion-dollar films. If the billion-dollar films are drying up, they're going to have to be pushed to something else. Now, it could be that they just give up and let the theaters die and go to streaming, which they would have the same problems if they're still making bad stuff, but I'm hoping that maybe if they're seeing that these IPs do have an endpoint and you can push things away, then maybe that pushes the industry to focus more on quality, focus on not just milking IPs to death. Like, they've almost milked all these IPs to death. The only one that isn't having diminishing returns is, unfortunately, Lilo and Stitch with the Disney remakes, because that made $1 billion, and that's the only movie this year that's made $1 billion. But you know, it might not be a bad thing if these industry people are forced to find other ways to make money and not just milk these IPs to death. But the other way that I think that this is going to be good for superheroes is, like I said, they got so big, it started to become co-opted by other interested parties that were after the money. And these characters started to change, and they started to not care about the comics anymore, and the comics became overtaken by other people. And another thing is they got so big that they thought that they were too big to fail and that they could do anything and that people would watch and people would stay on board. Clearly that isn't the case. So if superhero movies are no longer guaranteed billion-dollar hits, well, for one thing, it means that a lot of those leeches trying to take over these characters and stuff might leave and find greener pastures, because now they can't milk these characters that they don't actually care about to death. We might actually reach a state where the characters can just be themselves because people aren't trying to take them over and use them because they're after the money. But on another level, now that superhero movies are not going to consistently make $1 billion, it could also mean that now they have something to prove. So now if somebody picks up the franchise and the IP, because no one's ever really gone, as Luke Skywalker infamously said, now it means they might actually have to work and actually hammer home a quality script and actually have to up the game again, because it's not a guaranteed hit anymore. They have stuff to prove again. That is why in the early days of superhero films, there was a push for the quality of these films, because they had something to prove. They didn't have a proof that they could create a universe or anything. So it's kind of seems like a cycle, and it was eventually always going to get this way, where it became oversaturated and too big for its own good, and too many other people involved, and too many of the right people cut out of it. So this is overall going to be a good thing, not just for the industry, but for the characters we love, because it means that they are free from the spotlight. It means that they are free from needing to be for everyone, and it means that eventually new people might be able to come in and look at them and attempt to do these characters, but do them right, rather than just, cashing in on an IP. You have something to prove again, so you might actually have to put the work again. So I hope for the best here, but it is interesting to finally see the end of this era, and I only hope that the best things are coming from it, from the industry finally not being dependent on superheroes, and these superheroes finally being free from all of the expectancy behind them. But that's all I got for you guys today. What do you think of all this? Do you think that good things will come on the horizon from this, or is Hollywood just going to let itself die? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you, patrons and members, as always, for supporting me. If you want to support me as a member or a patron, you can consider signing up below, and I will see you guys next time.